Have you ever seen a boy celebrate his birthday? In silence, all by himself. A quiet forest, a broken cake, a backpack full of bruised hope. Liam was just 10. But on that cold morning, it wasn't the cold that made him shiver. It was the sound of the door slamming shut behind him, and the echo of a voice that said, "You're not welcome here anymore." A chilly autumn breeze crept through the cracked window of 10-year-old Liam's tiny bedroom as he sat on the edge of his bed. The morning light was grey and dim. Today was his birthday, but there would be no celebration, no kind wishes. Liam glanced at the little bundle he had wrapped in old newspaper, a humble gift he prepared for himself in secret. It was just a worn storybook he had found in the attic, tied with a faded ribbon. Still, to Liam, it was special, a tiny spark of joy he desperately needed on this lonely day. From downstairs, the sharp voice of his stepmother, Clarissa, rang out. Just the sound made him flinch. Clarissa had entered his life a few years ago, after Liam's father passed away. On the outside, she was always immaculately put together, but Liam knew the cold cruelty beneath her polished exterior. When his father was alive, she pretended to be kind. After his death, that pretense vanished. In its place were strict rules, harsh punishments, and a chilling indifference to his pain. Liam carefully hid the wrapped storybook under his thin pillow. Clarissa wouldn't approve of him keeping any personal treasures, especially ones that made him happy. His heart pounded as he remembered last year's birthday. He had dared to quietly mention it, hoping for at least a kind word. Instead, her eyes flashed with annoyance, and she snapped, "What do you have to celebrate? You're just another year more burdensome." The memory still stung. Downstairs, a door slammed. Liam quickly smoothed the threadbare quilt on his bed and hurried to do his morning chores. If he stayed invisible, sometimes he could avoid Clarissa's wrath. In the kitchen, he found her with a cup of coffee, nails tapping on the countertop. She didn't look at him as he entered. "Did you mop the hallway yet?" she asked curtly, by way of greeting. "Not yet, Ma'am." "I'll do it right away," Liam replied softly. He grabbed the mop and bucket from the pantry and hurried off to his tasks. His thin arms ached as he scrubbed the floors diligently, but he didn't dare stop until everything gleamed. When he finally finished and emptied the dirty water, nearly 2 hours had passed. Liam hoped Clarissa might have left for her usual Saturday errands by now. But as he peered into the living room, he saw her rifling through a pile of mail. Summoning a bit of courage, he spoke up timidly. "Ma'am, may I step outside for a moment?" "I've finished the chores." Clarissa looked up, fixing him with a suspicious glare. "Why?" she asked in a tone that made his stomach knot. I wanted to check the mail," he lied. In truth, he needed to retrieve the small cupcake he'd hidden under a loose board on the porch. A secret treat he'd bought for himself with a few coins he'd managed to save. She narrowed her eyes, then, with an irritated flick of her hand, gestured toward the door. "Fine. Be quick." Liam nodded and slipped outside. The autumn air was crisp and filled with the scent of damp leaves. Kneeling by the porch steps, he pried up the loose board. His heart fluttered with relief when he saw the cupcake still tucked safely in the cloth he had wrapped around it. It wasn't much, just a little chocolate cupcake with a smear of frosting, but it was more than he'd had in a long time. Dad would have gotten me a cake, he thought wistfully, an ache forming in his chest as he remembered his father's warm smile. He hid the cupcake in his coat pocket and replaced the board. After quickly checking the empty mailbox to keep his story straight, Liam turned back to the house. He tried to be quiet as he re-entered, but Clarissa was waiting in the entryway, arms crossed. To his dismay, Clarissa was standing right there, eyes narrowed. Before he could utter a word, her hand darted forward and yanked open his coat. Liam gasped as Clarissa reached into his pocket and pulled out the cloth-wrapped cupcake. Time seemed to slow. The cloth fell away, revealing the small cupcake, now a little squished. Rainbows of sprinkle and chocolate frosting were visible on the crumpled treat. Clarissa's face twisted with outrage. "What is this?" she asked, in a low, dangerous voice. Liam's mouth went dry. "It's a cupcake," he whispered, "for my birthday." For a moment, there was silence. Then Clarissa's eyes flashed with a fury that made Liam shrink back. "Your birthday," she said scornfully. "After all I do to keep a roof over your head, you think you deserve a special treat. Did you steal money to buy this?" No, I saved a little from errands," Liam stammered. His heart pounded in his chest. "I just wanted—" Clarissa didn't let him finish. With a disgusted sneer, she slapped the cupcake out of his hand. It hit the floor with a soft splat, frosting smearing across the tile. Liam let out a small, involuntary cry as he watched his tiny celebration destroyed. "You ungrateful little rat!" Clarissa hissed, stepping toward him. Liam stumbled back against the wall, fear pulsing through him. "Hiding sweets like I don't feed you, lying to my face. You know how expensive it is to keep you clothed and fed? And here you are sneaking around as if I starve you." I'm sorry," Liam managed to choke out, tears blurring his vision. "I didn't mean any harm." "Sorry," she mocked, her voice rising. "I've had it with your lies and your pitiful little acts. If you want to sneak around and act like a beggar, do it somewhere else. Get out." Liam's eyes widened, not fully understanding. What?" he gasped. "You don't mean—" Clarissa's face was set in cruel resolve. "I mean, get out of my house," she snarled. She grabbed his thin shoulder in an iron grip, propelling him toward the front door. Panicked, Liam tried to twist free. "Please," he cried. "I'll be good. I promise. Don't do this." Clarissa yanked the door open with her free hand. Outside, the sky had turned an iron grey, and a fine misty rain was starting to fall. "Out!" she snapped, pushing him over the threshold. Liam stumbled onto the porch, nearly losing his balance. The cold rain splattered his hair and thin sweater. He turned back, eyes huge with fear and pleading. "Please, Clarissa," he begged, shivering as the damp cold bit through his clothes. "I have nowhere to go." "It's raining." Clarissa disappeared inside for a moment, then reappeared with his worn canvas school bag, already stuffed with a few of his meager belongings. She must have prepared it while he was outside. With a final look of disgust, she hurled the bag at him. It landed at his feet, the contents clanking dully. "Take your things and go," she said, in a voice as cold as the wind. "Don't even think about coming back. If I see you on my property again, I'll call the police and tell them you're a trespasser. No one will believe you over me. You're nothing, Liam, nothing." Her words, so flat and hateful, struck him harder than any slap. Sobbing now, Liam clutched the canvas bag to his chest. Through the open door, he saw Clarissa's pale face, twisted with grim satisfaction. Lightning flickered in the distance, and Liam flinched at the low rumble of thunder. Clarissa stepped back and, without another word, slammed the door. The sound echoed, leaving him standing on the porch, shaking in the chill rain. For a long moment, Liam stood there, rainwater mixing with the tears on his cheeks. He kept hoping the door might open again, that she might relent. But the house remained dark and silent, the door firmly shut. He knew then that this was truly happening. He had no home here anymore. Hugging the bag, Liam wiped his eyes with a soaked sleeve. He had to find shelter for the night. Sniffling, he descended the steps of the porch. The wind gusted, whipping wet leaves around his feet as he made his way down the path. In the gathering dusk, he turned toward the only place he could think of. The small forest beyond the house where, long ago, his father used to take him on nature walks. There might be an old gazebo or dry spot under thick trees where he could stay until morning. It was a desperate hope, but all he had. As he stepped into the shadowy woods, the branches above swayed and whispered in the wind. Each step was uncertain on the muddy ground, but Liam pressed on. With every step away from the house, his heart ached with loss and fear, but somewhere deep inside, a tiny part of him felt a flicker of relief too. The nightmare with Clarissa was over, at least for now. Cold, frightened and alone, Liam disappeared into the trees, not knowing what fate awaited him on this dark, wet night. Night fell quickly under the dense canopy of the forest as Liam wandered deeper into the woods, cold and soaked to the bone. Each rustling leaf or snapping twig made his heart leap in fear. It felt like he'd been stumbling through the darkness for hours, though it was barely 1 hour since he fled the house. Disoriented and desperate, he tried to follow any semblance of a path, hoping to find some dry spot or shelter where he could wait out the night. Rainwater ran down Liam's face, mixing with the tears he couldn't hold back. At least at home, he'd had a roof over his head. Now he had nothing. A gust of wind howled through the trees, and Liam tripped over a twisted root in the darkness. He fell hard, scraping his knee on a rock and twisting his ankle. Pain shot up his leg, and he cried out softly before clamping a hand over his mouth. He forced himself to his feet and limped onward, biting his lip to stifle sobs. After a few more stumbling steps, his injured ankle finally gave out. Liam collapsed at the base of a towering oak tree, panting from pain and exhaustion. Trembling, he dragged himself under the oak's broad branches, which offered a little shelter from the drizzle. Curled up against the trunk and clutching his bag to his chest, he tried to make himself small. His whole body was shaking and achingly cold. In the darkness, Liam allowed himself to whisper a plea, voice quavering. "Dad, please help me. I need you." He wasn't sure who else to ask. The night answered only with a drip of rainwater off leaves. Liam pressed his face against his knees, feeling utterly alone. A short while later, over the sound of the rain, Liam heard something new. A man's voice calling out, distant but growing nearer. His heart lurched. It could be a rescuer or someone dangerous. He held his breath, torn between hope and fear. The voice came again, and this time a beam of light pierced through the dark trees. A flashlight's glow danced through the thickets and then landed on Liam's huddled form. He squinted and raised a hand to shield his eyes, startled by the sudden brightness. "Hello?" came a deep voice, cautious but concerned. The light dipped lower, and a figure emerged from the shadows, stepping carefully over the tangled roots. "My goodness. Are you all right, son?" Liam blinked, trying to focus. The man before him was tall and solidly built, with broad shoulders draped in a long coat. He held the flashlight in one hand. In its glow, Liam caught a glimpse of a face that looked kind, etched with worry. The stranger appeared to be in his 50s, grey flecks in his dark hair and rain dripping from his coat. "What are you doing out here all alone?" the man murmured, mostly to himself as he knelt down slowly. "Hey there, it's okay. I won't hurt you." His voice was gentle, soothing in a way Liam hadn't heard in a very long time. Liam opened his mouth to respond, but only a shaky breath came out. Up close, the man's eyes were soft with concern, and Liam felt a lump in his throat. He wasn't used to anyone caring how he felt. The stranger set his flashlight on the ground so it shone upward, then swiftly shrugged off his heavy wool coat. He draped it around Liam's thin, soaked shoulders. The coat was blessedly warm, carrying the man's body heat and a faint scent of soap and cologne. Liam instinctively pulled it tighter around himself, a shuddering sigh of relief escaping him. "You're hurt," the man observed gently, noticing how Liam winced when he shifted. He looked down at Liam's leg. "Your ankle. May I check it?" Liam hesitated, then gave a tiny nod. He didn't have the strength or will to protest. The man's hands were strong but careful as he felt around the swollen ankle. "It's pretty tender, huh?" he said sympathetically as Liam sucked in a breath of pain. "All right, we won't try to walk on that." The man paused, meeting Liam's eyes. "My name is Everett Grayson. I live not far from here, just beyond these woods. Let's get you somewhere warm and dry, all right?" Everett Grayson. Liam had heard that name before, maybe from townspeople or at the market. Mr. Grayson was a wealthy man who lived on the big estate nearby, a man who mostly kept to himself. Liam never imagined meeting him, let alone here in the dark forest. Liam managed a small nod. His teeth were chattering too hard to speak. Relief and disbelief mingled in his chest. Someone had found him. He wasn't alone anymore. Everett gave him an encouraging smile. Without further hesitation, the man carefully slipped one arm behind Liam's back and the other under his knees. In one smooth motion, he lifted Liam up, as though he weighed nothing. Liam gasped softly, instinctively wrapping his arms around Everett's neck to hang on. He couldn't remember the last time anyone had held him. The feeling of strong, protective arms cradling him made fresh tears spring to his eyes. "I've got you," Everett murmured. He picked up the flashlight, awkwardly juggling it until he managed to hook it into his belt, illuminating their path. Noticing the boy's canvas bag on the ground, Everett bent enough to snag the strap with 2 fingers. "Got your bag too," he assured. Held against Everett's chest, Liam felt the warmth of the man's body seep into him. He let his head rest on Everett's shoulder, too tired to keep it up any longer. The steady thump of Everett's heartbeat was the most comforting sound he could imagine right now. As Everett began walking through the woods, carrying Liam with careful steps, he spoke softly. "You're safe now. I promise. We'll be home soon." His voice reverberated in Liam's ear, calm and certain. Liam wanted to respond, to say thank you, but the adrenaline of fear was fading and exhaustion was crashing over him. His eyes drifted shut despite his efforts to stay awake. In a small, broken whisper, he managed, "Thank you." Everett's arms tightened around the boy protectively. "You're welcome," he said quietly. Everett gently adjusted his hold on Liam, protective instincts welling up in him. The boy looked so small and fragile. Even in sleep, his brow was pinched with worry. Gritting his teeth, Everett quickened his pace through the rain. The lights of his manor glimmered ahead through the trees, like a beacon. He was determined to get this child out of the storm and into the warmth and safety of a home once more. Only a few minutes later, Everett stepped out of the woods carrying Liam and climbed a gentle slope toward the back of his estate. The rain had slackened to a drizzle. As he crossed the lawn and neared the house, an older woman with a lantern hurried out onto the porch. Martha, his housekeeper, drawn by the sound of his approach. Martha gasped at the sight of Everett with a soaked, unconscious child in his arms. But Everett shot her a reassuring look. "He's all right, just exhausted and hurt his ankle," Everett said quietly. Martha swung into action at once, holding the door open as Everett carried Liam inside. The warmth of the manor's interior embraced them. Everett headed straight for a downstairs guest bedroom, Martha rushing ahead to pull back the covers on the neat, plush bed. Everett laid the boy down gently. Liam stirred, a faint whimper escaping his lips, until Everett placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Shh, you're all right," Everett whispered. Martha disappeared for a moment to fetch towels and the first aid kit. Everett carefully removed the mud-caked sneakers from Liam's feet and peeled off the soaking wet sweater. Liam's teeth chattered even in sleep, and Everett's heart clenched at how thin the child was. Faint bruises, in various stages of healing, marred Liam's arms. Everett's jaw tightened at the sight. By the time Martha returned with supplies, Everett had pulled the thick quilt over Liam. Together, they dried the boy's hair and gently tended to the shallow scrapes on his knee and the swelling on his ankle. Liam barely roused, only mumbling softly when Martha dabbed ointment on a cut, then settling again with a sigh. "The poor dear," Martha whispered, brushing the damp hair from Liam's forehead. She looked at Everett, her eyes full of questions. Who is he? And what on earth happened to him? Everett shook his head softly. His name's Liam. He didn't say much, but enough. His expression was grim in the low lamplight. His stepmother threw him out tonight. I found him half frozen in the woods. Martha pressed a hand to her mouth. She had worked for Everett long enough to know about Liam's family, the gossip around town about Thomas Harper's second wife. But hearing this news still sent a jolt of outrage through her. How could anyone do such a thing to a child, especially their own kin? She murmured, voice trembling with anger and sorrow. Everett didn't answer, but the hardened look on his face spoke volumes. He pulled the quilt up higher around Liam's shoulders, then gently checked the boy's forehead with the back of his hand. It felt cool enough now. No fever. "He'll sleep through the night, I expect," Everett said softly. He glanced at Martha. "I've already called Dr. Whitman to have a look at him in the morning and to document any injuries." Martha nodded approvingly. They both knew documentation might be needed if authorities became involved. "We should let him rest then," she said, turning down the lamp. Everett lingered a moment, looking at Liam's peaceful face against the pillow. In sleep, the boy looked even younger than his 10 years, and heartbreakingly vulnerable. Everett felt a swell of protectiveness, unlike any he'd known since his own son. He swallowed, pushing that thought gently aside. "Good night, Liam," he whispered, almost unconsciously, before following Martha out and closing the door to let the child sleep in warmth and safety. Liam awoke on a soft mattress, with a warm quilt tucked around him, and the gentle crackling of a fireplace nearby. For a moment, he wondered if he was still dreaming. Blinking in the golden morning light that filtered through drawn curtains, he took in the unfamiliar, cozy bedroom, the high ceiling, the shelves of books, the scent of soap and wood smoke. He realized he was dressed in clean flannel pajamas and that his sprained ankle was wrapped in a snug bandage and propped on a pillow. Memories of the night before rushed back. Clarissa's fury, the cold rain, and then Mr. Everett Grayson carrying him through the darkness. A soft knock at the door made Liam jump slightly. An older woman with kind eyes peeked in, a tray in her hands. "Oh, good. You're awake, dear," she said warmly as she entered. "Good morning. How are you feeling?" "Good morning," Liam replied in a small voice. I'm all right, ma'am." She gave a reassuring smile. "I'm Martha, Mr. Grayson's housekeeper. And you are safe here." Martha set the tray on the bedside table and adjusted the pillows behind Liam to help him sit up. On the tray was a steaming bowl of oatmeal, toast with butter, and orange juice. The delicious smell made Liam's stomach rumble. "I brought you some breakfast," Martha said gently. "You must be hungry. Go on and eat up." Liam hesitated out of habit, unsure if he was truly allowed. But Martha's encouraging nod gave him confidence. He picked up the spoon and tasted the oatmeal. It was warm, sweet, and comforting. Before he knew it, he had eaten half the bowl. Martha watched him with a sad, affectionate look, as if imagining what he'd been through. While he ate, Martha chatted softly. She explained that Mr. Grayson had found him in the woods and brought him home. He had even called the doctor to make sure Liam was all right. "You gave us a bit of a scare," she said, pouring him a cup of water. "But the doctor said you just needed rest and warmth. Mr. Grayson sat with you for hours to be sure you were sleeping comfortably. He only went to lie down a little before dawn himself." Liam listened in wonder. He could hardly believe a stranger would care so much. I don't know how to thank him." "Or you," he murmured. "No thanks needed, dear." Martha patted his hand. "We're just glad you're okay." She took the tray once Liam had eaten his fill, which turned out to be nearly every bite. "There now. Feel a bit better?" "Yes, Mum." "Thank you," Liam said shyly. Just then, a gentle voice came from the doorway. "Good morning." It was Everett Grayson. He stepped into the room, looking relieved to see Liam sitting up. He wore a neat brown sweater and slacks, and in the daylight, his face was kind, with a touch of concern around his eyes. "How's our patient?" he asked, directing the question to both Liam and Martha. "Much better after a hearty breakfast," Martha said with a grin. She picked up the tray. "I'll give you two some time to talk. Just ring if you need anything." With that, she slipped out, quietly closing the door and leaving Liam alone with Everett. Everett took a seat in the chair beside the bed. "I'm glad to see you awake, Liam," he said gently. "You had me worried last night." Liam's cheeks flushed. "I'm sorry, sir," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to be any trouble." Everett shook his head. "You're not in trouble. I'm only glad I found you when I did." He leaned forward slightly, resting his forearms on his knees in a relaxed posture. "How's the ankle feeling today?" "It hurts a little, but it's okay," Liam replied. In truth, it ached, but compared to what he'd been through, it seemed a small thing. Everett looked relieved. He hesitated, then said gently, "Is there anyone I should call to let them know you're safe?" "Any family at all?" At the mention of his stepmother, Liam's expression crumpled. He lowered his gaze to the quilt, fingers twisting the edge of it. "My mother died when I was little," he said softly. "My dad, he died 2 years ago. Since then, I lived with my stepmother, Clarissa. She's the one who threw me out." Everett's jaw tensed, but his voice stayed gentle. "Did she hurt you, Liam?" Liam hesitated, shame and fear battling inside him. But something in Everett's steady, compassionate gaze made him feel safe to speak. His eyes filled with tears that he tried to blink away. Yes, she hurt me," he whispered. "She would lock me in the closet or the attic for hours when I made her angry. Sometimes she hit me, and last night, she finally told me to get out and never come back." Everett closed his eyes for a brief moment, pained by the boy's words. He took a breath, then reached out and gently placed his hand over Liam's small, trembling hand. "Liam, what she did to you is terribly wrong. None of that was your fault. You understand me?" A tear rolled down Liam's cheek. I tried to be good," he whimpered softly, "but she always got angry." "You listened to me," Everett said, his voice warm but firm. "You are not to blame. You didn't deserve any of it." Liam managed to nod, wiping his face with his sleeve. It felt strangely relieving to hear those words, though part of him still struggled to believe them. Everett squeezed Liam's hand, then let go so as not to overwhelm him. "Thank you for telling me," he said. "You're a brave young man." He straightened up. "Now, I promise you this. I am not going to send you back to that woman. Okay? You will stay here with me, for as long as you need to feel safe." Liam looked up, eyes wide. "Really?" he breathed. "Really?" Everett assured him. "We'll figure out what to do next, together. But you won't have to see your stepmother if you don't want to. You're not alone in this anymore." A shaky smile of relief appeared on Liam's face. The weight of fear that had been crushing him began to lift. "Thank you, Mr. Grayson," he said, his voice sincere and raw with gratitude. Everett felt a tightness in his own throat at the look on Liam's face. He cleared his throat softly. "You're welcome." Everett patted Liam's shoulder gently. "For now, you should rest." "Doctor's orders," he said kindly. "Martha and I are right downstairs if you need anything at all. Just holler and one of us will come. You're safe here." Liam nodded. A yawn escaped him. He was still so very tired. "I will, sir," he added softly. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," Everett replied. "Just focus on getting better. There's a whole stack of books on that shelf if you get bored later. We'll talk more soon." With that, Everett stood up. He gave Liam one last reassuring smile before he headed to the door. "I'll check on you in a little while. Get some sleep." When he left, closing the door part way, Liam sank back against the pillows. His body felt warm and heavy with contentment. A full stomach, a soft bed, and most of all, the immense relief of safety. As he closed his eyes to rest a bit more, Liam silently gave thanks to Everett, to kind Martha, and maybe, just maybe, to his father watching over him. He dared to hope that this safe haven might not just be a dream after all. That evening, Liam carefully made his way downstairs on a pair of crutches Martha had found for him. He joined Everett for dinner in a cozy dining room where a fire crackled warmly in the hearth. Martha served them hearty beef stew and fresh bread before slipping off to give them privacy. For a while, they ate in a comfortable silence. Liam savored every bite. Eventually, Everett struck up gentle conversation. He reassured Liam that he would contact the school to explain Liam was safe and staying with him, which eased the boy's worries about falling behind. Liam shyly asked if Everett grew up in town. "Not exactly," Everett said, setting down his spoon. "This house belonged to my late wife's family. We moved here after our son was born." He nodded toward a portrait above the mantel of a laughing young woman holding a little boy. "That's my wife, Margaret, and our son, Peter. They passed away in a car accident 6 years ago." Liam felt a pang of empathy. "I'm so sorry," he murmured. He knew the pain of losing parents, but he couldn't imagine losing a child as well. Everett managed a small smile at Liam. "Thank you. It was a very hard time." He gave a small nod at Liam's sympathy. "I shut myself away after losing them," he admitted quietly. The crackling fire filled the pause. Then Everett mustered a gentle smile. "I want you to know, I understand what it is to feel alone," Everett said. "It's terrible to lose family." He managed another smile and added quietly, "Having you here is bringing some life back into this house." Liam's eyes stung with grateful tears. "I'm glad I'm here too, sir. I feel safe." "You are safe," Everett replied. "For as long as you need, you're welcome here." Martha brought a pot of tea and even a plate of homemade cookies for dessert. She fussed happily to see Everett enjoying a hearty meal and made Liam blush with compliments about his good manners. Liam giggled at the gentle teasing and happily devoured a warm oatmeal raisin cookie. They lingered at the table, sipping tea. Liam shyly told Everett about some of his favorite adventure books from school, and Everett, smiling, promised to show him the Manor's grand library soon. They even shared a few light laughs, a sound that hadn't been heard in this house for a long time. By the time Martha returned to clear the dishes, the sorrow that had hung over the mansion had lifted a little. That night, when Liam climbed into bed, he felt no fear. There was a full stomach, a warm blanket, and a sense of peace he had never known at home. He whispered a quiet thank you into the darkness, grateful to be safe and cared for. Down the hall, Everett stood by his bedroom window, looking out at the moonlit grounds. He held a small photo of Margaret and Peter in his hand and felt a gentle calm wash over him. For the first time in many years, the house was filled with warmth and hope. Everett went to sleep that night, feeling that perhaps, at last, he was not so alone. Both man and boy slept soundly, each finding comfort in the new bond they had formed. Later that morning in Everett's study, Detective Alan Morris, a stout, shrewd-eyed man in his 50s and an old friend of Everett's, sat across from Liam. Everett took a seat beside the boy for support. Detective Morris cleared his throat. "Liam, I'm very glad you're safe," he began gently. "I know it might be hard to talk about, but I need to ask you a few things about what happened with your stepmother. Is that all right?" Liam glanced up at Everett, who gave him an encouraging nod. "It's okay, son. Just tell the truth." "You have nothing to fear," Everett said softly. Liam mustered a small, brave smile and looked back at the detective. "Yes, sir. I'll try." Over the next 20 minutes, Liam haltingly recounted years of mistreatment, how Clarissa became cruel after his father died, how she often locked him in closets or struck him, and how on his birthday she grew enraged over a small cupcake and threw him out of the house into the storm. Detective Morris took careful notes, his expression grave. When Liam finished, the detective said softly, "I'm so sorry you went through that, son. You're very brave for telling me." He leaned forward, empathy and steely resolve mingling in his eyes. "You did the right thing seeking help." Liam let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. It felt strange and liberating to have his story heard and believed by an authority figure. "From what you've told me, and from the doctor's report of your injuries, we have enough evidence to press charges against Clarissa," Detective Morris assured. Liam felt a mixture of relief and anxiety at those words. Will I have to see her?" he asked in a small voice. "Not if we can help it," Detective Morris assured him. "We'll likely need you to talk to a child services officer, or maybe a judge eventually. But we can do our best to make sure you're not put directly in front of her, unless absolutely necessary. And certainly you won't be going back to live with her." Everett placed a comforting hand on Liam's shoulder. "I've made arrangements with a lawyer I know to help with your custody situation. The authorities have granted a temporary protective order, meaning Clarissa is not allowed near you for now, and you can remain with me while the investigation proceeds." Liam closed his eyes, a wave of relief washing over him. Every new assurance that he wouldn't have to return to Clarissa was like a weight lifting off his chest. "Thank you," he whispered. Detective Morris offered a reassuring smile. "You're safe now. That's what counts. But we also want to make sure Mrs. Harper, Clarissa, faces consequences for what she's done." Everett's jaw tightened. "She'll likely lie or deny it all," he muttered. Detective Morris nodded. "We've dealt with folks like her. With Liam's testimony and the medical evidence, she won't easily wriggle free." The detective flipped to a new page in his notebook. "Liam, I need to ask about your father's death 2 years ago. Was it sudden?" Liam nodded, anxiety flitting across his face. "It was night. Dad collapsed. I wanted to call 911, but Clarissa told me she'd handle it and sent me to my room. By the time the ambulance came, he was gone." Everett clenched his jaw. The detective sighed. "I found that his death was ruled a heart attack, and Clarissa had him cremated quickly, with no autopsy. Did your father have a will?" "I don't know," Liam said, frowning. "I never saw one. Clarissa took care of everything after, and she got rid of most of Dad's things." Everett exchanged a look with the detective. "Thomas was healthy. His sudden death and her actions afterward are highly suspicious. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a will that disappeared." Detective Morris nodded. "I'll check court records and talk to the lawyer who might have handled your father's affairs. If a will was hidden or anything was amiss with his estate, that could be very telling." Liam suddenly remembered something. Once I saw a letter Dad wrote to a lawyer named Feldman. Clarissa snatched it from me, and I never saw it again. Richard Feldman, Everett said, recognition in his voice. He's a local estate attorney. That could be a break, Detective Morris replied, snapping his notebook shut. I'll pay Feldman a visit and see what he knows. I'll also dig into Clarissa's background, see if she's done anything like this before. When the detective finally left, Liam felt exhausted, but hopeful. Everett knelt beside him and looked him in the eyes. Alan will find the truth, he promised. Clarissa won't get away with what she's done to you or your father. I'll make sure of it. Hearing Everett's firm vow, Liam believed him. For the first time, he felt justice might truly be within reach. 2 days later, late in the afternoon, the peaceful calm of Grayson Manor was shattered by the sound of angry pounding at the front door. Martha hurried to open it, only to stumble back as Clarissa Harper pushed her way inside. Clarissa's face was contorted with rage. Everett appeared at once, positioning himself between Clarissa and the interior of the house. "Mrs. Harper," he said coolly, though his heart hammered with protective instinct, "I suggest you leave. You're not welcome here." Clarissa sneered. "Where is Liam?" she spat, attempting to shove past Everett. He blocked her path. "He's safe, and you are not allowed here, Clarissa. The court order." "Damn your court order," she snarled. "He's my stepson, not yours. You have no right to keep him. What are you doing? Trying to play hero? Trying to replace your dead son with my boy? You're pathetic, Everett." Everett's temper slipped. Better a pathetic old man, caring for him, than leaving him with a heartless woman who locked him in closets, he shot back. "Leave now, or I'll call the police." Clarissa's eyes blazed. "You think you've won. You'll regret this. And you—" Her eyes flicked up to the stairs, where Liam hovered partway down, drawn by the commotion. "Don't get too comfortable, boy. You think you've won? No one will ever really want you. Not even him." She jerked her chin toward Everett. "That's enough. Leave." "Now," Everett said, voice like steel. Clarissa looked at him, breathing hard. For a moment, she seemed to waver. Then she drew herself up, eyes cold. "This isn't over," she snarled at Everett. She spun on her heel and marched out the open door, slamming it behind her. Everett waited by the window until he saw Clarissa's car tearing back down the drive. Only then did he look up toward the stairs. "Liam, it's all right. She's gone." Liam descended the steps shakily. Everett met him halfway and without hesitation pulled the boy into a comforting embrace. Liam held on tight, trembling. "I was so scared," he whispered. "It's okay now," Everett murmured, rubbing Liam's back. "She can't hurt you. Not here. Not ever again if I have a say." Martha put a gentle hand on Liam's shoulder. "She's gone, dear," she said softly. Only when Clarissa's car disappeared did Liam finally relax his grip on Everett. The ordeal left him pale and shaken. Everett and Martha led him to the kitchen for a glass of warm milk and tried to make him laugh with a few kind jokes. In time, Liam managed a small smile, though he clung close to Everett for the rest of the evening. That night, after Liam finally fell asleep, Everett sat in the dimly lit sitting room, staring into the dying fireplace embers. Martha found him there, his expression troubled. Martha sat across from him. Everett's face was drawn with worry. "She knew just where to strike," he said quietly. "Her words. What if there's truth in them? What if I'm not what Liam truly needs? I'm an old man, Martha. Maybe I'm being selfish, thinking I can raise a child again." "Nonsense," Martha said, shaking her head. "Anyone can see how happy that boy is here. You're exactly what he needs, and he's what you need too. You give each other something to live for." Everett rubbed a hand over his eyes. "I can't lose him," he whispered. "The thought of him being taken away—" A small voice came from the doorway. "You're wrong, you know." They turned to see Liam standing there in his pajamas, eyes puffy but determined. "You're not too old or selfish. You saved me. I want to stay here, with you." Everett opened his arms and Liam rushed into them. Everett's throat tightened with emotion as he held the boy close. "And I want you here, son," he whispered, "for as long as you'll have me." Liam looked up and managed a watery smile. "Good night, Dad." The word hung in the air, soft and certain. Everett closed his eyes, a tear slipping down his cheek as he kissed Liam's brow. "Good night, son." Martha quietly ushered Liam back to bed, and Everett's heart felt lighter than it had in years. Clarissa's threats meant nothing now. He and Liam had found each other, and whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as a family. 3 days after Clarissa's explosive visit, Detective Morris returned to Grayson Manor, this time bearing a thick folder under his arm. Everett and Liam sat together on the living room sofa as the detective laid out what he'd discovered. Martha hovered in the doorway, anxious and hopeful. "I have some news," Detective Morris began, adjusting his glasses. "Quite a lot of it, actually. First, I spoke with Richard Feldman, the lawyer your father had consulted, Liam. Mr. Feldman indeed handled your father's will. It seems Thomas Harper left virtually everything to you: the life insurance, the house, savings, with Clarissa named only as a trustee until you came of age. She never submitted that will. Instead, she sold the house and took the insurance money. In short, she stole your inheritance." Liam's stomach turned. Everett's jaw tightened in anger. That alone was shocking, but the detective had more. He opened the folder and took out another report. "It gets worse. Clarissa apparently has done this before. I discovered she had an earlier marriage, under her maiden name, to an older, wealthy man. He died in an odd accident barely a year later, and she inherited a lot of money. It looks very much like a pattern. She targets men for their money." Liam's blood ran cold. It dawned on him that she might have had a hand in his father's death too, though proving it would be difficult now. Still, Detective Morris said grimly, "We may never have proof about your father, but her motives are clear as day." Everett asked the crucial question, where was Clarissa now? Detective Morris grimaced. "When we went to arrest her, she was already gone. Neighbors saw her packing her car late last night. She's fled." Liam felt both relief and fear. Relief that her crimes were exposed, fear that she was out there, desperate. Detective Morris warned them to stay vigilant. Desperate people do desperate things. "I'll have the police keep an eye on this place until we catch her." After the detective left, Liam released a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. The truth was out, and Clarissa was on the run from the law. "She might have taken what my dad left," Liam said quietly. "But she didn't take me. I got away." Everett put an arm around the boy's shoulders. "And you're safe with us now. We won't let her hurt you ever again." Liam leaned into Everett's side, nodding. Clarissa's web of lies was unraveling at last. Justice was closing in, and he knew that whatever happened next, he wouldn't face it alone. Only a few nights later, Liam jolted awake, eyes flying wide in terror as a hand clamped hard over his mouth. Clarissa's face was inches from his. Before he could scream, she pressed a knife to his throat. "Shh," she hissed. Trembling, Liam nodded, tears already welling. He could hardly believe this was real, the nightmare of Clarissa here in his safe haven. "Get up," Clarissa whispered fiercely. "We're going for a little ride." She yanked him out of bed. Liam stumbled, his mind racing. Clarissa's grip on his arm was vise-like. He could smell the stale scent of alcohol and sweat on her as she pushed him toward the door. As they stepped into the hallway, Liam's eyes darted desperately, looking for help. Down the hall, he saw Everett stirring. Everett had awoken, perhaps sensing something amiss. The older man rose from a chair in the hallway, blinking in confusion at the scene. Clarissa dragging Liam, a knife in her hand reflecting the faint light. "Clarissa!" Everett's voice was a sharp whisper of alarm. Clarissa pulled Liam back against her, holding the knife near his throat. Liam whimpered, his hands clutched at her arm. "Stay back, Everett," Clarissa snarled, her voice low and shaking. "One more step and I swear I'll slit his throat." The knife trembled in her grasp, but her eyes were wild enough to make the threat credible. Everett froze, hands raised placatingly. His mind raced. If he lunged, she could hurt Liam. He had to keep her talking, buy time. "You don't want to do this," he said carefully, taking the tone one might with a cornered animal. "Hurting him won't solve anything, Clarissa." "Shut up," she spat. "Solve anything? My life is ruined anyway, thanks to you." Her voice cracked. "If not for you two, I'd be far away with all of Thomas's money," she spat. Everett inched slightly to the side, drawing her attention toward himself and away from Liam. "Thomas's money was never yours, and now the police know everything. There's nowhere to run." "I have nothing left to lose," Clarissa hissed. She began edging toward the stairs, dragging Liam with her as a shield. "Maybe I can't run, but I can make you suffer, both of you." Tears slipped down Liam's cheeks. He managed to choke out, "Please, please don't hurt us." Clarissa sneered, tightening her grip on him. Poor little Liam. Always the victim. "Clarissa, stop," Everett said sharply, seeing the effect her words had on the boy. They had reached the top of the staircase. One misstep, and they could tumble down. Everett's heart pounded. He couldn't let her drag Liam away. Summoning all the calm he could, he continued, "You can't undo the past. Don't make it worse. Let the boy go, and I'll talk to the police. Tell them you came to turn yourself in." Clarissa barked a humorless laugh. "Do you think I'm stupid? There's no talking out of what's coming for me." She pressed the knife closer. Liam squeaked as the cold steel grazed his skin. Everett was out of time. Suddenly, red-blue police lights flashed outside as a patrol car arrived, drawn by a silent alarm Everett had triggered, or sheer luck. Clarissa glanced toward the window, and Liam seized the chance. He stomped hard on her foot and wrenched free of her grasp. Clarissa lunged after him with a crazed cry, knife raised. Everett sprang forward, shielding Liam. The blade slashed across Everett's forearm as he grappled with her. He grunted in pain, but managed to knock the knife from her hand and wrestle her to the floor. Within seconds, the police burst through the front door. "Police! Drop it!" they shouted. Clarissa, seeing the officers' guns aimed at her, went still. Everett pinned her down until the officers rushed up the stairs. In no time, Clarissa was yanked to her feet and handcuffed. Screaming in rage and despair, she was dragged downstairs. She threw one last venomous glare back at Liam and Everett. "This isn't over," she shrieked as the officers hauled her away into the night. It was, in fact, over. On the landing above, Everett knelt and gathered Liam into his arms, heedless of his own bleeding wound. "It's over," he murmured, voice shaking with relief. Liam clung to him tightly. Clarissa was gone. The nightmare was truly over. Martha hurried to their side, sobbing softly in relief at finding them alive. The medics arrived moments later to bandage Everett's arm and check Liam. But father and son refused to let go of each other. "You were so brave," Everett whispered to the boy. Liam pressed his face into Everett's shoulder. "I wasn't afraid, because you were here." Under the swirl of red and blue lights, amidst the flurry of police and medics, Everett and Liam held fast to the one thing that mattered most: each other. They were safe. They were family. And at long last, the darkness had given way to dawn. Summer sunlight filtered through the tall windows of the county courthouse as Liam took a seat at the witness stand. It had been 3 months since that terrifying night, and now the day of reckoning had arrived. Clarissa Harper sat at the defense table in an orange prison jumpsuit, her once haughty face drawn and pale. She avoided Liam's eyes. Everett watched from the front row of the gallery, Martha beside him. He gave Liam an encouraging nod. Taking a deep breath, Liam began to answer the prosecutor's questions. In a clear, steady voice, he recounted the years of abuse, the night he was thrown out, and the final incident when Clarissa broke into their home with a knife. His hands trembled slightly as he spoke, but he did not falter. Clarissa's attorney offered only weak objections. The evidence against her was overwhelming. The fraudulent will, neighbors' testimony, the injuries to Liam and Everett, and even Clarissa's own unhinged actions caught on the officers' body cameras. When Liam finished his testimony, the courtroom was silent, except for muffled sniffles. A juror wiped her eyes. The judge nodded solemnly and allowed Liam to step down. As he walked back to his seat, Liam felt a wave of relief. He had spoken the truth openly, and nothing bad had happened. In fact, he felt stronger for it. Everett squeezed his shoulder proudly as he passed. The trial was swift. Clarissa, realizing the hopelessness of her situation, eventually pleaded guilty to multiple charges: child abuse, assault with a deadly weapon, fraud, and others. In exchange, the prosecutors dropped any pending investigation into Thomas's death, which would have been hard to prove. But it hardly mattered now. Clarissa faced a lengthy prison term all the same. At the sentencing, Clarissa finally spoke. In a quavering voice, she attempted an apology. I'm sorry for what happened, she said, though her words rang hollow. Her gaze flickered toward Liam and Everett, only briefly. There was no warmth there, only a hollow defeat. Liam simply looked down, not wanting to meet her eyes. He didn't feel hate, only a deep sadness for what could have been, and relief that she would never hurt anyone again. The judge's voice was firm and clear as he delivered the sentence. Clarissa Harper was to serve 30 years in state prison, with no possibility of parole for at least 20. At those words, Clarissa closed her eyes and bowed her head, shoulders shaking once, as if in mute acceptance. When it was over, the judge addressed Liam directly, his tone gentle. "Young man," he said, "you've shown great courage. I know this has been very hard, but your bravery ensured that justice was done today." Liam managed a grateful nod. He felt Everett's arm around him, steady and supportive. As the bailiff led Clarissa away in handcuffs, she paused and glanced back for just a second. Her eyes met Liam's. In them, Liam thought he saw not fury or menace this time, but something like regret. And then she was gone, escorted through the door to pay the price for her deeds. A soft sigh of closure escaped Liam's chest. Everett knelt beside him, at eye level. "It's over now. Truly over," Everett whispered. Liam nodded and leaned into the embrace that enveloped him. "Thank you, Dad," he whispered. The word still felt new and wonderful on his tongue. Everett hugged him close. "Let's go home, son." With arms around each other, they walked out of the courtroom into the bright afternoon sunshine. Justice had been served. Clarissa was the past, and ahead of them, a new future, together, was just beginning. A year later, on a clear spring morning, Everett Grayson and Liam Harper stood side by side in a small family courtroom. Both wore suits. Liam tugged at his collar, nervous but beaming. Today was the day the adoption would be finalized. After months of home visits, paperwork and waiting, it had all led to this moment. Martha sat in the first row, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief and smiling proudly. Detective Morris had even stopped by, leaning against the back wall, arms folded with a satisfied grin. The judge, the very same who had presided over Clarissa's case, peered down at Liam kindly. "Young man, I have a few questions for you," he said warmly. "Do you understand what adoption means?" Liam nodded. "Yes, sir. It means Everett will be my father. My real father, in the eyes of the law. We'll be a family." "And is that what you want?" The judge's voice carried a smile. Liam glanced up at Everett, then back at the judge. "More than anything," he said, voice clear and sure. Everett reached over and gently squeezed Liam's hand. The judge turned to Everett. "And Mr. Grayson, you understand the responsibilities you're undertaking. You'll be this boy's legal father, as if he were your biological son. I trust from everything I've seen that you're ready for that." Everett's voice was a little choked with emotion. "I am, Your Honor. Liam has been a son to me from the moment he came into my life. I couldn't be prouder to make it official." "Very well," the judge said, signing the final line on a stack of documents with a flourish. "It is my honor to declare this adoption finalized. Liam, from this day forward, you shall be known legally as Liam Grayson." A cheer broke out in the courtroom. Martha actually let out a little whoop before covering her mouth, embarrassed as everyone chuckled. Detective Morris gave a thumbs up from the back. Liam threw his arms around Everett. "Dad," he exclaimed, savoring the word that no longer felt strange at all. Everett lifted the boy in a joyful hug, his eyes glistening. "It's official, son," he whispered. "You're stuck with me." Liam laughed through happy tears. "Best decision ever," he murmured. After a round of congratulations and many hugs, and a homemade cake Martha insisted everyone taste back at the manor, Everett had one more stop planned for the day. He and Liam drove out to Greenvale Cemetery, where Thomas Harper, Liam's father, was buried beneath an old oak tree. Father and son, for that's truly what they were now, approached the well-tended grave. Liam had brought a small bouquet of white daisies, which he carefully laid against the headstone that read, "Thomas Harper, beloved father." "Hi, Dad," Liam said softly, kneeling before the grave. "I wanted to visit and tell you, I'm okay. I miss you every day, but I'm okay now." He took a deep breath as Everett rested a supportive hand on his shoulder. "I have a family. Dad, is taking good care of me. I'm safe and I'm happy. I hope you're at peace, knowing I'm loved." Everett felt tears slip down his cheeks, but they were gentle tears of closure and joy. "I'll protect him, Thomas," Everett whispered toward the stone, voice trembling slightly. "I promise." For a moment, a breeze rustled the oak's leaves, and Liam liked to imagine it was his father's way of showing approval, a soft whisper from above. Liam stood and pressed his hand to the cool headstone, silently saying goodbye. Not forever, but goodbye to the pain and loneliness of the past. Everett wrapped an arm around his son, and together they turned and walked back to the car under the bright midday sun. As they reached the car, Liam looked up at Everett. "Can we visit Peter's grave next time?" he asked quietly, referring to Everett's late son, whose resting place they had visited once before. I want to bring him some daisies too, to tell him he doesn't have to worry about you anymore." Everett's breath caught. He blinked away a sudden blur of tears and hugged Liam to his side. "I think that's a wonderful idea," he managed to reply softly. They climbed into the car and headed home, the road stretching out before them, green and golden with spring's promise. Liam rolled down his window, letting the fresh wind wash over his face. On the drive back, they talked about everything and nothing, about what Liam wanted to do over summer vacation, and about a puppy Martha thought they should adopt next, which made Liam's eyes light up. Laughter punctuated their conversation, easy and light. For Liam, every mile away from the cemetery felt like a step toward a bright new future. He had a home. He had a father and a family who loved him. He was no longer lost or unwanted. Everett glanced at Liam, seeing the boy's hair tousled by the wind and the carefree grin on his face. It filled Everett's heart with a profound sense of fulfillment. In saving Liam, he realized, he had also saved himself. Father and son arrived back at Grayson Manor in the late afternoon. Home. As they walked up the path, Liam took Everett's hand in his. "I love you, Dad," he said, voice earnest and a little shy. Everett knelt to meet Liam's eyes, squeezing the small hand in his. "I love you too, Liam. Welcome home, son." They entered the house together, the door closing gently behind them on the echoes of a painful past. Ahead of them, the halls were filled with light, and if any two people in the world knew that good things can come after even the darkest of times, it was Everett and Liam. A family, at last, home where they belonged. In the end, Liam's story reminds us of something quietly powerful. That even the smallest act of noticing can save a life. How many children do we pass by, bruised, silent, invisible, simply because they didn't scream loud enough? And how many of us carry wounds from long ago, wishing just once someone had said, "You matter. You are not alone." If you're listening to this, and it stirred something in your heart, may I ask gently, what brings you comfort as you listen tonight? A warm blanket? A cup of tea? You're not alone either. This space is for you, your memories, your stories, your voice. Let's keep believing in the quiet ones. They have the deepest songs,